Hello and welcome to Sunday Run Day, the podcast. This week's guest is joining us from San Francisco. We have Shori on the show. So, Shori, thank you for taking time out to join the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Now, I'm really excited to hear your story. I want to go all the way back to when you were a competitive swimmer. And as I mentioned before we started the podcast, you were swimming for the Harvard swim team and actually loving competitive swimming that you've done from an early age. And then you kind of
Mhm.
transitioned into running. So I want to talk a little bit about your competitive swimming and how was that? And then the transition into running.
Yeah, awesome. So I started swimming or being put in a pool for the first time around 5 months old. My parents put me in these classes for water safety. So, these water baby classes. So I'm comfortable with the water. And then over the years, I worked my way from the water baby classes to the tadpoles to the goldfish, all the way up to squad swimming, which I started when I was five years old. And then, worked my way up to swimming at state championships, nationals. All throughout high school, I absolutely loved it. It was my biggest time commitment outside of academics. And then when I was deciding where to go for university, I started looking at the US schools because I know that, especially the Division 1 swimming programs across the country are incredibly strong. And so I thought, just have really big goals, try and aim for somewhere with an incredible athletic and academic program. And so applied to Harvard, got in, which was incredible, and then swam all 4 years on the Harvard swim team.
Oh, that's amazing. And how was that? How was being part of that swim team, the competitive spirit, but also, the community as well around the school and as your academics as well, and being at such, one of the top universities in the world. How was that?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest differences for me that I really loved about the US college system was that it truly felt like a team sport for the very first time. I think swimming really is an individual sport. It's only you in the water, you have your own lane, and you're swimming for your own times. But in the college sports system, we swim to get points for our team. And at the end of a swim meet, it's as a school who places first, second, etc. So while there are still medals for coming first, second, third in a race, that really, as a team, wasn't our priority. It was who can we put in which events to really optimize the number of points as a team that we could win. And it was such an incredible team spirit where, you'd be swimming. I did a lot of butterfly and breaststroke. So you have open turns where you are facing the ceiling as you do a turn, and you have teammates, it could be a dozen teammates who are at that wall, leaning over the water and cheering in your face as you're doing this open turn. So it was incredible scenes like that where it really felt like a team sport. And at the end of the day, we won or we didn't win as a team, but it was an incredible experience. And then to your second part of the question, juggling athletics and academics was definitely challenging. It was demanding on both sides, but I think in a way that we had this supportive team around us. And so I loved it. I probably didn't sleep enough in college, but it was an incredible experience.
Oh, I love what you mentioned there as well, just about the community as well and the team sport, because it's the same with running, I guess, of talking about, individual sports when you're out there by yourself, but having that community, having that team around you. So even when you're swimming there in your lane, to have the team just as say leaning over the wall, cheering you on and giving you that, that boost. And as you say, really building that team spirit. It's great that as an individual, you're trying to better yourself, better your times. But as you say, being that team spirit and that team sport, that's amazing. I love that experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then talking about you finished then obviously college, you finished your competitive swimming, and then you had that gap of like, well, what do I do next type thing? Do I continue with the competitive swimming or move into something else? And you then chose to move into running. How was
Mhm.
that? How was that sort of mindset for you to moving from sort of that team competitive swimming into running and very more individualized at that moment for yourself?
Yeah, I chose running as the sport to go into after college. One, because I wanted to try something new that I hadn't spent a lot of time doing before. But also, secondly, I was doing consulting right after college. And so that meant that I was on the road a lot during the week, traveling to the client site. And so it had to be something I could also do on the move. And it meant that it was some, late night treadmill sessions in the hotel gym, or if I could go outside, I'd go for a jog outside. But I really liked that running was very accessible. You just had to pack a pair of joggers and have a workout outfit. And then wherever I was traveling for work, I could still, squeeze in a run or two throughout the week. So that was the reason that I got into running. And like you mentioned, at the beginning, it was very individual. I was running on the treadmill or outside by myself. But I think as I got further and further into this world of running, it really does become similar to how I experienced swimming, this community team spirit where there are so many other runners out there. I think especially in the last decade as well, running globally has really picked up as a sport. I think during COVID, there was this huge uptick of people getting into running for the first time. And then you see in the world major, application numbers now where the lotteries are so hard to get into, because I think it's a good thing that they are becoming so popular and people are trying to get into it. So over the years, I've been able to connect with other runners in Australia, in the US, around the world. So whether that's running in person in run clubs in various cities, or even connecting with other runners like yourself online and being able to be a part of that broader community, it's been a lot of fun to have that team spirit.
And I love what you said there as well. Like you kind of to start with, it was very individualized. It was by yourself on the treadmill, late night runs, maybe out in a city because of work commitments. You're
Hmm.
traveling around, and it was kind of more about just getting into running. But then, as you say, especially over the last few years, the running community has boomed massively. And what I love about it is the supportiveness of the community. As you say, with run clubs out there, people are out there really supporting each other, and we're getting to meet people. And I'm very lucky to be able to meet people through a podcast and get to meet so many different people, their journeys, and hear their stories, and kind of really bring that community together. And I absolutely love what you touched on there about really having that community spirit. Felt very much similar like it was when you were back swimming. So then obviously you get into running. Here we are. You started your little running journey, and you went from obviously 5K and you've now built yourself up to the marathons. How was that experience? And when did you kind of realize yourself that, "Oh, I want to try and run a marathon"?
Yeah, I started with a 5K at the very beginning of my running journey, which was a very long and hard 5K. And I think once I just got started, similar to the feeling that I got when I could improve my times with swimming, you kind of just get the running bug, and I could feel myself getting stronger and fitter. The biggest transition that I found hardest when I started running was the impact of gravity. With swimming, you don't really feel gravity. So I'm like, oh, land sports are so hard. But once I got stronger and fitter and I could see my times getting faster and faster, that was really encouraging to see. And the distances started feeling a little bit easier. It took a lot of time to get there, but I think over time, I worked my way up from the 5K to then did a 10K to a 10 miler. And eventually I was like, okay, I think I can work my way up all the way to the marathon. Like, what a great goal to work towards. And I've always found that from both my swimming background and now running, I always need something to train for to have the motivation to work out. So I love that, I entered my first marathon back in 2019, which was the Sydney Marathon. And after that, I started getting deeper into the world of running, and I found out about the world majors. This was still when Sydney wasn't a world major,
Yeah.
but to see videos of how big the crowds were at some of these world majors and how excited everyone seemed to be running them, I was like, I want to do that one day. So that's how I, built up to the marathon, and why I keep chasing, that feeling of continuing more races over the years.
And I really do agree with you. Like you started out is such a great way of just that 5K to see how you're feeling, see how you're, learning to be on a land sport. You're so used to being in the water. And as you say, the gravity, learn to be on the land and, getting used to your body and getting used to what you can do and just working your way up. I think it's such an amazing thing to be able to, yeah, take your time and enjoy that journey, enjoy that process of getting all the way to the marathon. And then obviously Sydney Marathon 2019 to get there. How was that experience, your first marathon? Was it everything you kind of thought it would be? Was it kind of that challenge that you really did enjoy the challenge and embraced it?
It was really hard. I was definitely, struggling, especially in that second half. This was also a time where I didn't know as much as I do now about proper
Yeah.
fueling, about proper hydration, taking gels, like all of that I know now. Didn't know any of that. And I think I might have eaten, one banana before the race and had no gels on me or anything. So I was very much struggling in that second half of the race. But what a feeling to cross that finish line for the first time and know that you have accomplished this thing that you've been working so hard towards. So I was yeah, hurting a lot after the very first marathon, but I told myself, I was like, wow, what a, great feeling. I want to do that again with a bit of time and a bit more training. But it's, I think, a very special feeling to be able to do that very first one. And then, yeah, since then, I think with every marathon that's come along, tried to get more educated about how I can better prepare for the race, how to best prepare for training in the lead up to the race. So, yeah, similar with my swimming background, I think every experience I try and see what I can learn from that and what I can do to improve and be better the next time.
And I agree with you. I think, yeah, from myself as well, a similar experience of learning so much about running from my first marathon to where I'm at now. It's it's so far apart, worlds apart of what we know. And as you say, learning about your body, learning about what your training is, and also your fuel and hydration is all of that. And I think even now, like we're still learning every race, every run we're doing, we're still learning and trying to get better and improve ourselves. And yeah, kind of get that feeling of we love the feeling of running and, as you say, crossing that finish line for the first time was just seeing what you could accomplish and knowing that I can do this and I want to go back and try more and get better at it. And as you touched on there, obviously the world majors. I'd love to touch a little bit about Tokyo last year. I was fortunate enough to run Tokyo this year, and we chatted just before we recorded the podcast, and I was saying how much I love Tokyo, and I mentioned on last week's podcast with my wife Clara, we talked about our experience, and just it was incredible. But I'd love to talk about your experience because you mentioned to me, obviously for you, you were born in Tokyo, so the experience of finally getting into the Tokyo Marathon and running it, how was that overall for you?
Yeah, it was an incredible feeling being able to run the Tokyo Marathon. I had been trying to lottery and get in for a couple years. So to finally get in, and I'd heard so many great things about the race. And every chance I can go back to Japan, I'm always, so excited to be there. I speak Japanese, so I feel like I can really connect with my Japanese side when I'm back in Japan. I love the food there. It's, incredible. And they have an incredibly strong and vibrant running community. So to get to see that all really culminate in this marathon, and in a country where it is my motherland, both my parents are Japanese, was very very special. And just, yeah, I think seeing all the like incredible volunteers, the crowds, just like how beautiful the course is, going through different parts of the city. I'd seen a lot of that, those parts of the city just on my own, but to be able to run through the streets and experience it while you're running with tens of thousands of other people, I'm sure you experienced it as well. It's such a great feeling, and I think it's also a very fun and fast course. And the time of year in Tokyo is also beautiful. You've got some of the cherry blossoms starting to go. So I think, yeah, I would love to do it again at some point in the future.
Yeah, and I think touching this, everything you just said there from, yeah, just the culture as well. I say you know more than myself about it, but yeah, for me, I love to be there in Japan and experience that. The people were just amazing. The volunteers were incredible. And it's a great time of year to go to Japan as well. You got a little bit of cherry blossoms just coming around. The weather was fantastic. And as you say, just kind of going through the city with tens of thousands of other people enjoying that moment. I definitely think Tokyo was a real fun and fast race. Like, yes, the course is great, but it was just fun. I think just everyone there, from the volunteers, from the people, everyone just seemed to have a lot of fun. And I certainly did. And my wife Clara did as well. So it's really good to hear your experience was very similar to ours. And that you had lots of fun there. And how is it for you then? Obviously, living in the US, there you run a lot in miles now. And then coming from obviously Australia, we run in kilometers. How has that changed for you? Because I struggle myself. I come from the UK where I used to run in miles quite a lot. And then since I've ticked over to kilometers, that's all I can think about. I struggle to go back to think of miles at all. How is that for you?
Yeah, I started running in the US after college. So I started running in miles. My Strava was set to miles when I initially downloaded the app. And so I think it's been sort of all I've known in my running life is
Yeah.
really running in miles, since the after the college days. So I've talked about this online about how I think for me it's a bit of a running hack, or maybe runner's math to run in miles, because I feel like it feels shorter to run in miles. Some of my friends say that it's faster in kilometers because you actually feel like you're achieving more in a faster amount of time. But I think the other way, where for me, if I'm like, oh, I'm just going out for a 3 mile run, that sounds much shorter in my head than I'm going out for a 5K run, just 'cause it's a
Yeah.
smaller number. So that's how or even, 26 miles feels a lot shorter than 42 kilometers. So that's how I run in miles. And Yeah, I like that I get a little bit more time, in between hearing the notifications of the miles and the beeps. And I can just sort of get into a bit of a flow state, listen to a podcast or music, and then, every, however many minutes I hear the little beeps. But I guess if I were running in kilometers, they'll be happening much more frequently.
No, it's true, and yeah, so each to their own as well. As you say, many people prefer to run in miles, and it is that as well. It does sound shorter. Obviously, it's longer between, like you say, between 1 kilometer to 1 mile, etc. But it does sound shorter when you go out for a 3 mile run to a 5K. But yeah, I just love to have that insight as well because for me, I'm very much now used to running in kilometers. I struggle to think about miles, but what I love talking about Tokyo as well is that they actually had the signpost for kilometers and miles. So I thought that was really
Yes, I
good
remember
for
that.
many people there. And it was the first event that I've seen. Like obviously a lot of events I've done here in Australia. So it's always been in kilometers. But it was the first event I've seen that actually had miles and kilometers. So you kind of thought to yourself, yeah, for many people there traveling from overseas, they're running miles, they can get that little bit of an idea because as you say, running some events, very difficult to really go off your Garmin. You're kind of going off the mile markers or the
Hmm.
kilometer markers because yeah, buildings and stuff can vary a little bit. So yeah, but I like the insight as well for you that you say seems shorter to run in miles than it does kilometers.
Yeah.
So just talking about what's next. Obviously, we're building up now. We got New York Marathon at the end of the year. I seen you just run recently a half marathon. How was that?
Yeah, it was a great experience. I was in North Carolina over the weekend to run a half marathon with a good friend who's out there, and it was her first ever half marathon.
Oh,
So
that's
I went
amazing.
and joined her, and it was through the woods of North Carolina. So an absolutely beautiful course. And yeah, she crushed it. We had a great time hanging out over the weekend. So that was half marathon number 12 that was over the weekend.
That's awesome. And yeah, so I seen some of the images online. It looked amazing. The course looked really cool. As you say, running through the woods there. It looked absolutely amazing. And then as you're building up, you've got a New York Marathon towards the end of the year. You must be really excited for that.
Yeah, really excited. I've run it once before, and I think it might maybe be my favorite race that I've ever done to date. Just because the crowds in New York are just incredible. There is so much energy in that city that I haven't been able to, find that same level anywhere else in the world. And yeah, to get a chance to be able to do it again this year because it is one of the hardest races to get into. I think the lottery acceptance rate this year was 1%, which is insane. So, yeah, to be able to do it this year, I'm incredibly grateful and really excited to do a course that I've done before. So I'm a bit familiar with it, know what type of hills to expect, what the crowds are going to be like, but then also to have a couple more marathons under my belt, because I think that was the second one I ever did after this first Sydney one. So to have a couple more reps now under my belt, know how to pace a race, train for it well, fuel and hydrate and all of that. I'm excited to have a solid training block and then try and go for a personal best in New York later this year.
Oh, that's amazing. And I love the fact that, as you say, you run it was only your second marathon and you've learned so much over the course of your running journey. As you say, 12 half marathons in, and now will New York be your seventh marathon? Is it correct?
Yes, it'll be number 7. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, to then I have that journey of getting to New York, your seventh marathon, and learning more about your fueling and your strategy. Yeah, I'm excited for you. I think yeah, you'll smash it. You'll definitely get a PB. But talking a little bit about New York, obviously second time going back. What sort of things would you think that you've learned from the first time that you'll kind of implement a little bit in the second time? I know you touched a little bit about the course and knowing a little bit more about some of the hills. What do you think would benefit you running it for the second time? And for any people that might be listening, that maybe doing New York later this year for the first time, what sort of advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think I would bring into the race sort of 3 main things. One is on the fueling side, which is something that I actually sort of did properly for the first time in Tokyo last year, which was the carb loading.
Yeah,
For the longest time, I always thought carb loading was, eat a big bowl of pasta the night before and you're set. And then I actually did a lot more research into it before Tokyo and realized it is much, much bigger than that in terms of, the amount of carbs that you need in your body. And so I ended up last year doing a 3-day carb load before Tokyo for the first time, aiming for almost 500 grams of carbs a day. And
yeah.
so that meant I was eating, so many rice balls and bakery goods and just like amazing foods in Tokyo, which I was not complaining about. And I think that combined with a very solid training block going into it meant that it was the first time I didn't hit a wall is in the Tokyo race last year. I felt amazing. Usually I've hit a wall at like mile 20 or earlier and then really faded in the second half of the race. But Tokyo last year didn't hit a wall, felt amazing the entire time. So definitely that carb load and then making sure I take gels every half hour in the race are some learnings that I'll take into New York later this year. So that's number one. I think number two is training more hills, especially speed on hills. I think both of those things are very important on its own, but then knowing that there are some of these big climbs and drops on the New York course, I'm definitely going to be prepping for that in the months leading up to New York. And then number three, which is actually something I did do the very first time I ran it, and I'll do again. It was my favorite piece of advice when I picked up my bib was this, absolute veteran who had run it so many times before was standing next to me, and he heard that I was a first timer, and he said, if you can, get your name on the front of your shirt and run on the outside. And so I got some white sports tape and a Sharpie, put my name on my front of my shirt, and it was the best running hack because, especially with New York, it turns the entire city into your personal cheer squad. And so it was this incredible feeling where I pretty much spent the entire race, every couple meters just saying thanks to people because they would, look you in the eye and say, like, go, Shori, go, like, you've got this. And that was the entire race. Like, you run on the outside, you put your name on the front of your shirt. So if others who are listening are going to run New York or even, any other races that have, a fun and just like very vibrant and energetic crowd, I've now tried to do that on other races as well, where I just, put my name on my front and just hear these like, strangers cheering you on, which is an incredible feeling.
That's absolutely incredible. I love it. What a great bit of advice as well. As you say, kind of run on the outside, have your name there, and just to get those feels and that energy from the crowd, especially later on in the race where you feel that you do need that little bit more. And as you say, like to, learning your fueling strategy and your carb loading as well, leading up to Tokyo. Had a great race, didn't hit a wall. You've learned so much. You're going to implement that, obviously, leading up to New York as well. But yeah, as you say, having your name on the bib, getting those people to cheer you in such a vibrant race, such a great city like New York, where people are just out there to support people. Yeah, I love that. It's a great bit of advice. And yeah, anyone listening, definitely make sure you got your name on the front of your bib and run on the outside. So that is great. So obviously, New York Marathon, the end of the year. What's the bigger running goal for you in sort of the few years to come? Well, yeah, obviously the world majors, I guess, is probably not number one up on the list. And I guess maybe coming back to Sydney to run Sydney out as a major.
Yeah, I actually ran Sydney last year for
Oh,
its first
awesome.
major year. Yeah, so very happy and grateful that I was able to also check off Sydney amongst the major list. So of the world majors, which is one of my big running goals, I have two left, and that's Boston and London. So I know they're both incredibly hard to get into, but related to that is my big running goal number two, which is to hopefully one day get the BQ, the Boston qualifying time, which I
Oh,
know
that's
is so fast, but every time I do a PB, I'm like, oh, I am getting closer. I think maybe one day, if I keep up the training, keep getting faster and stronger, I can get there. I think right now I've qualified for like the 55 plus age category or something. So I could either have to maintain my current pace for a couple more decades and hope they don't keep dropping the time, or I get faster in the next couple of years. But that is ultimately one of the big goals is to get that coveted Boston qualifying time and run the Boston Marathon.
Oh, that's incredible. I love that. Like, yeah, I mean, keep that pace up for a couple of decades. I'm sure you're going to improve all the time. And yeah, I'm looking forward to obviously, yeah, follow your journey as well. And I can't wait to hear that you obviously hit that BQ. And as you say, you're improving bit by bit and you're enjoying it, you're loving it. And, for anyone listening, obviously go check out Shore on her Instagram. It's a fun page. I love how much you love running. I think it's infectious to see just that you're out there running and happy. It's just what the community is about, what running's about. I love to see that you're just enjoying running and sharing your experience with us. It's amazing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, following along with the journey and checking out the page as well. It's very fun to, do something that I really love and enjoy, and then to be able to just, very easily put that online now that we have incredible social media and technology. And then because of that, I get to connect with these other incredible people in the running community around the world. Like what a time to be alive.
Yeah, for sure. It's amazing that we get this opportunity to be able to connect with so many people from around the world. And just, yeah. And as I say, you have an infectious spirit about you for running. I love it. I think it's what running's about. And I really do thank you for taking the time to join the show and share your journey. And we're looking forward as well to hearing the rest of your journey of how you go. And obviously, New York Marathon. I wish you all the best for the New York Marathon later on this year. And yeah, that BQ, I'm sure, is just around the corner.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
No, thank you. Well, that's it for this week. And as always, until next time, happy running.